Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskrityam.
Narayanam Namaskrityam.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Tato Jayamudire.
Tato Jayamudire.
Nashtaprayasu Abhadresu.
Nashtaprayesu Abhadreshu.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Bhagavati Uttama Sloke.
Bhagavati Uttama
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki.
Bhakti Naistiki.
Reading from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 17, titled The Divisions of Faith. And today we're going to discuss verse number 4, 17.4. Yajante Satvika Devan.
Yajante Satvika Deva.
Yaksharakshami Rajasa.
Yaksharakshansi Rajasaha.
Pretan Bhuta Ganam Shanya.
Pretan Guna Bhuta Gananchane.
Yajante Tamasa Jana.
Yajante Tamasa Janaha.
Yajante Satvika Devan.
Yajante Satvika Deva.
Yaksharaksham Shirajasa.
Yaksharakshansi Rajasaha.
Pretan Bhuta Ganam Chanya.
Pretan Bhuta Gananchane.
Yajante Tamasa Jana.
Yajante Tamasa Janaha.
Yajante Satvika Devan.
Yajante Satvika Deva.
Yaksharaksham Shirajasa.
Yaksharakshansi Rajasaha.
Pretan Bhuta Ganam Shanye.
Pretan Bhuta Gananchane.
Yajante Tamasa Jana.
Yajante Tamasa Janaha.
Any Prabhuji, Mataji would like to read?
Yajante Satvika Devan.
Yajante Satvika Devan.
Yaksharakshansi Rajasaha.
Yaksharajakshirajasa.
Pretan Bhuta Gananchane.
Pretan Bhuta Ganam Shanye.
Yajante Tamasa Janaha.
Yajante Tamasa Jana. Word by word meaning? Yajante, worship.
Yajante worship.
Satvika,
Satvika.
those who are in the mode of goodness.
Those who are in
the mode of goodness.
Devan,
Devan.
demigods.
Demigod.
Yaksharakshami, demons.
Yaksharakshansi. Demons.
Rajasa,
Rajasa.
those who are in the mode of passion.
Those who are in the mode of passion.
Pretan,
Preta.
spirits of the dead.
Spirits of the dead.
Bhutaganan,
Bhutagana.
ghosts.
Ghost.
Cha, and
Cha and
Anye, others.
Anne others.
Yajante,
Yajante.
worship.
Worship.
Tamasa,
Tamasa.
in the mode of ignorance.
In the mode of ignorance.
Jana,
Jana.
people. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Swami Prabhupada ki jai. Translation.
Jai.
Translation by His Divine Grace. Men in the mode of goodness
Men in the mode of
In
goodness
the
men
mode
in the
of
mode of
goodness,
goodness
worship the demigods.
worship the
worship
demigods.
the
The
demigods.
demigods.
Those in the mode of passion
Those in the
Those
mode of
Those in the
passion
those in
mode
the
of
mode of
passion,
passion.
worship the demons.
worship the
worship
demons.
the
The
demons.
demons.
And those in the mode of ignorance
And those
Those
And
in the
those
mode
in
of
the
in the
mode of
mode of
ignorance
ignorance,
ignorance.
worship ghosts and spirits.
worship
worship
ghosts and
ghosts and
spirits.
spirits.
Worship ghosts and spirits.
Any Prabhujis or Matajis would like to read this page, one of the 3 pages?
In this verse, the Supreme Personality of Godhead describes different kinds of worshippers according to their external activities. According to scriptural injunction, only the Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipable. But those who are not very conversant with or faithful to the scriptural injunction worship different objects according to their specific situation in the modes of material nature. Those who are situated in goodness generally worship the demigods. The demigods include Brahma, Shiva, and others, such as Indra, Chandra, and the sun god. There are various demigods. Those in goodness worship a particular demigod for a particular purpose. Similarly, those who are in the mode of passion worship the demons. We recall that during the Second World War, a man in Calcutta worshipped Hitler because, thanks to that war, he had amassed a large amount of wealth by dealing in the black market. Similarly, those in the modes of passion and ignorance generally select a powerful man to be God. They think that anyone can be worshipped as God and that the same result will be obtained.
Thank you, Prabhu. Anyone else would like to read this page?
Now it is clearly described here that those who are in the mode of passion worship and create such gods, and those who are in the mode of ignorance in darkness worship dead spirits. Sometimes people worship at the tomb of some dead man. Sexual service is also considered to be in the mode of darkness. Similarly, in remote villages in India, there are worshippers of ghosts. We have seen that in India, the lower class people sometimes go to the forest, and if they have knowledge that the ghost lives in a tree, they worship that tree and offer sacrifices. These different kinds of worships are not actually God worship. God worship is for persons who are transcendentally situated in pure goodness. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 4.3.23, it is said, Satvam Visuddham Vasudeva Sabditam. When a man is situated in pure goodness, he worships Vasudeva. The purport is that those who are completely purified of the material modes of nature and who are transcendently situated can worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Thank you, Prabhu. Someone else would like to read this page?
The impersonalists are supposed to be situated in the mode of goodness, and they worship 5 kinds of demigods. They worship impersonal Vishnu form in the material world, which is known as philosophized Vishnu. Vishnu is the expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but the impersonalists, because they do not ultimately believe in Supreme Personality of God, imagine that Vishnu form is just another aspect of impersonal Brahman. Similarly, they imagine that Lord Brahma is the impersonal form in the mode of passion. Thus, they sometimes describe 5 kinds of gods that are worshipable. But because they think that the actual truth is impersonal Brahman, they dispose all worshipable objects. They dispose of all the worshipable objects at the ultimate end. In conclusion, different qualities of material modes of nature can be purified through association with persons who are of transcendental nature.
Thank you, Prabhu. Let's all chant together. Om Agyanatimirandasya
Yasya
Gyananjanashalakaya
Salakaya
Chakshurmilitam Yena
Chakshurtamena
Tasmai Sri
Tasmai
Gurave
Sri
Namo
Gurave Namah
Sri
Sri
Chaitanya
Chaitanya
Manovistam
Manobishtam
Stapitam Yena
Stapitam
Bhutale
Yena Bhutale
Swayam Rupa
Swayam Rupa
Gadamayam Dadati
Kadamayam Dadati
Swapadantikam
Swapadantikam
Vandeham
Vande
Shri Guru
Aham
Shri
Sri Guru
Uttapadakamalam
Sutta
Shri Guru
Kamalam Sri Guru
Vaishnavamscha
Vaishnavam
Sri Rupam
Sri Rupam
Sagrajatam Sahagana
Sagragatam
Raghunatham Vitam Tam
Sagragatam Vitam
Sajivam
Sajivam
Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana
Savadutam
Sahitam
Parijana
Krishna
Saitam
Chaitanya Devam
Chaitanya Devam
Sri
Sri
Radha
Radha
Krishna
Krishna
Padan
Krishna
Sahagana
Padan
Lalita Sri
Sagalalita
Vishakha
Sri
Vitamsha
Vishakam
He Krishna
Hare
Karuna
Krishna
Sindhu
Karuna
Dinabandhu
Sindhu
Jagatpate
Jagatpati
Gopesha
Gopesha
Gopika Radha
Gopikakanta
Kanta
Radha Kanta
Namastate
Namostute
Takanchana
Taptapanchal
Gaurangi Radhe
Gaurangi Radhe
Vrindavaneshwari
Vrindavaneshwari
Vishwanusute Devi
Vishwanusute Devi
Pranamami Hari
Pranamami
Priye
Hari Priye
Panchakalpataru Vishakripa Sindhu
Panchakalpataruvacha
Vacha
Kripasindhu
Patitanam
Vedanam
Pavanevyo
Pavanebhyo
Vaishnavevyo Namo
Vaishnavebhyo
Namo
Namo Namo
Jai Shri Krishna
Jai Shri
Chaitanya
Krishna
Prabhu
Chaitanya
Nityananda
Prabhu
Sri Advaita
Nityananda
Gadadhar
Shri
Shivash
Advaita
Adi Gaura
Gadadhara
Bhakta Vrinda
Srivasadi Gaura
Hare
Hare
Krishna
Krishna Krishna
Krishna
Krishna
Krishna Hare
Krishna
Hare
Hare Hare
Hare Rama
Hare Rama
Rama
Hare
Rama
Rama Rama
Rama Hare
Rama
Hare
Hare Hare
Lachal Nivasa Nitya Paramatmane Balvatra Sudra Jagannath Namo. So thank you so much for joining this wonderful Sangha every Saturday evening, where we systematically discuss some of the very powerful verses of Bhagavad Gita one after other. In the last verse, the second verse of the 17th chapter, this chapter is all about discussion between Krishna and Arjuna about the division of faith. In the first verse, Arjuna is asking the question around faith, and in the second verse, Krishna described the various different faiths versus different modes. And in this verse, Krishna is going deeply into the faith and dovetailing into worship. And gradually, Krishna is going to discuss about the faith for austerities, faith for charity, and faith for different foods. And this is a very real, practical uh, discussion chapter. So, a reflection of how we are is often described by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead is speaking to us in his lotus mouth with his beautiful setting of the war, and when the reflections are being put into us, we see that ourselves in front of a mirror. So whenever Lord is explaining something and it is reverberating in our ears, we recognize that we cannot hide ourselves from ourselves. We have He has made it so much crystal clear through his teachings and his transcendental knowledge that we ourselves recognize each other. That's why Bhagavad Gita discussion is often a self-realization, because we know more about ourselves in this world when we are totally dispersed. We're so busy with social, with so many different things. We never ever get to a point of recognizing, understanding, identifying, and knowing ourselves. But when you look at the scripture, when it is spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or it is spoken by the incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for example, Vyasadeva, who wrote all the scriptures, when he is telling the scriptures through these very powerful verses, you recognize that you are learning about yourself more and more and more. So, what is that Lord is saying here, by which we can know where we are? Is the people who are in the mode of goodness, they worship the demigods. If you, in your own internal world, is offering prayers to demigods, you very much know by this word yardstick. This is like a test, like you give your blood test, you get the result. And this is a test as to which modes of goodness or passion or ignorance we are in. So here Lord is very clearly saying the men in mode of goodness worship the demigods, and those in the mode of passion worship the demons, and those in the mode of ignorance worship ghosts and spirits. And Srila Prabhupada is giving this beautiful example that during World War, someone really made a lot of money and he started worshiping. And you go to various different parts of India, there will be the Bollywood stars are offered uh, worship in temples, and people break coconuts in front of the Bollywood stars, and they offer it to the Bollywood stars. And when you look at this and you reflect on this verse 17.4, you very much clearly can recognize who the Supreme Personality of Godhead is and how the people are positioning themselves in their different modes, and how much they have gone deep into worshipping the Bollywood stars, or South Indian stars, or wherever we see these temples where the the personalities are worshipped. So when you think about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you have a sense of surrender built into it, in the sense that I will worship someone who can protect me. So when the Vrajavasis were under the mountain, Govardhan mountain, and Indra was showering tremendous amount of rain and wind, the people in the Vrajavashis, or the people in the Vrindavan Dham who were under the mountain, under the Govardhan Hill. Govardhan Hill is a huge hill, if you've been there. They never doubted that the small little kid, 7, 8-year-old kid, who is lifting this Govardhan in his pinky, will shake it up and will get crushed under the mountain. Why did they do it? Because they had complete faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna at that point in time. Faith, which this chapter is all about. It's about faith and how the division of faith plays into it. So it is the faith and is their ability that they're so confident they could have left that area and gone under a a huge building or a tree or whatever the case may be, but they did not do that. The entire Vrindavan was under the Govardhan hill when the showering of lightning, uh, thunder, a lot of rain, that kind of rain nobody has even seen ever in his life, the way it is described in the scriptures. This is precisely because they had tremendous faith. And when you think about some of the um, practical activities, let's take an example. When you have a kid in a zoo watching the lion, and they're playing, they're making some actions, they're making some faces, and the lion and the kid are playing through various different acts and various different, and that and tends to be very playful, and it's going on good. After some time, the lion in the other side of the zoo, behind the nets, gets angry for some reason, and then the the lion runs towards the kid, and the kid is on the other side of the zoo, but there are security guards, there are uh, there are various different commandos who are protecting. There is the father, there is the uncle of the kid, and there is the mother of the kid. If you think about the the people with the rifles, the commandos, are the most powerful people at that point in time. If for some reason the lion or the tiger, whatever the case may be, would break open and eventually get to the kid, they are the first line of defense. But actually, the kid doesn't go to the security guards. The kid doesn't go to the father. The kid doesn't go to the commandos. The kid directly goes to the mother. It is precisely because the kid has that element of faith that whatever the case may be, the mother will never let the kid go. So that is a faith which is untarnished, which is so powerful that in spite of all the protections around, the kid goes to the weakest person, but with the faith that she is going to protect. Srila Prabhupada, 69 years old, in Jaladuta, several weeks on the sea, on a freight ship, came. The sheer surrender and faith that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is going to protect and take care of his organization or his society, that he had no fear. He was fearless. He was fearless because he knew there is somebody who is going to protect. When Mother Uttara, when Sutama shot into the womb of Mother Uttara, and the Brahmastra got rid of the kids. There was the most powerful archer by the time, if you remember, Abhimanyu had fought a heroic battle. We spoke about it in our prior classes, and how he 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 was a young kid, not very how they created that element of doubt, and how Karna and everyone surrounded, and every big archer, powerful person conspired to kill him. And by the time this activity of Uttara being shot and the kids of Uttara in the womb were killed by Sutama, it's a very ghastly moment. At the time, the husband is not there. Her father-in-law, is the biggest archer. And there are other powerful personalities in Vishmadev and everyone. But where did Mother Uttara go? Mother Uttara ran towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna with the intent that whatever the case may be, Lord, whether he protects or doesn't protect, but our surrender and our faith is not tarnished by the doubts. So it begs a question that does devotees have bad news? Devotees always have bad news. Good people have bad news. Devotees have bad news. Devotees, bad things happen to devotees as well. But why does devotee have a smiling face all the time? It is because whether it's a good news or bad news, the news is a prasad of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Whatever we have done by trying to stay in the mode of goodness, whenever we think about mode of goodness, you try to light a wood to get fire to prepare your prasadam. In the old days, you take a wood and try to create fire. But when you light it, the wood, initially, all the fumes come out of the wood. Then after the fumes come out of the wood, then the fire eventually happens. So the initial lighting and the fumes culminates eventually with the fire by which you end up preparing prasad or whatever the case may be. So the point to think here is these two things, the match and the fumes were inherent things, but it doesn't get you to the end. It's just, they are just the means. So when we have some modes of passion or ignorance at some part of the day, we have to have that faith that by following a process, we will overcome this modes of passion and ignorance, and eventually that will transcend into light and fire, which will help us in cleansing and getting rid of the darkness around it. So with that confidence that we will eventually transcend into mode of goodness, we have to get rid of the toxins in our lifestyle, in our interactions, in our way of life. So, so when you think about the faith or the people who end up worshiping different demigods, the ghostly characters, and different demoniac people, you have so many examples. You have so many examples wherein you realize that Hiranyakashipu, he was constantly offering prayers to stay alive forever. But no demigods could give that boon that he can live forever. So that's why he tried all possibilities in the form as if the person who will kill me is not a man, not an animal, not day, not night, neither in the earth or in air, and so many criterias were put, but eventually he misused that right to live, and eventually he was killed by Nrsimhadev, who was neither a man nor an animal, neither in the daytime nor in the nighttime, right in the midpoint. And so, as you can see, that our ability to surrender goes a long way in transcending the mode of goodness over a period of time. We all have deficiencies, but how we respond to those deficiencies and how to overcome it over a period of time through this process which is laid out. Unless we know that we have a problem, we will never attempt to solve the problem. But in spite of fixing the problem, there is a lot of people around the world who are indulging in sense gratification just to deflect the symptoms. But the real fact is they haven't realized who they are, which is exactly what we're trying to do through these Bhakti Vrikshas, is try to learn from the Supreme Personality of Godhead or from the scriptures such that we know more about ourselves as if we're standing in front of a mirror. As the Supreme Personality of Godhead is saying, if you're following, you're worshiping, if your faith in worship is on demigods, you are certain kind. If your faith on worship is on is going after worshiping demons, you are certain kind. And worshiping ghosts and spirits, you are certain kind. So we have to, once you recognize that the diagnosis is very clearly available by the Supreme Personality of Godhead words, then you can take actions in how to transcend from the matchbox to fumes onto the true fire in you by going to the right point of following the process. The process is such well laid out by our acharyas that there is no need to think about, because in this world there is a lot of WhatsApp University, this and that, which will guide you to follow, mantra, tantra, and whatever. But the fact remains that Supreme Personality of Godhead is so clearly saying who to worship. And in this age, if you can transcend all this, you can accept what the Supreme Personality of Godhead is saying is man in poor goodness worship Vasudeva. And if you're not, then there is that cleansing process we have to undertake regularly through association, through scriptures, and gradually it will stick. It will never stick on day one, and 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 gradually this ruchi and this love for Godhead is going to arouse, and 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 like the kid who went nowhere, we are just kids in the hands of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sooner we recognize and take the recourse of surrendering, our faith will be very strong. And this point is faith on worship. And who you worship, eventually the qualities will rub on you. There are people who, indulge in, dead spirits and ghosts. Their belief, they are very fearful. They get some intermittent benefit, the service which La Prabhupada is writing, but eventually they realize that it is not good enough in terms of self-realization. Then they start worshipping, demons. Then they realize that's not worth it even, and then they go into demigods. That is also not good enough. That is why we have to go and transcend beyond goodness. Uh, we have to be Suddha Sattvas in our ability to accept the facts which is laid down by the scriptures beautifully, as La Prabhupada is saying. So we would like to discuss a little bit about this verse and your thoughts, corrections, reflections. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Any question, comments, reflections, Prabhu and Matajis? Any additions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam. All
Hare
good.
Krishna. Maharaj.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you. Then pranam to all Vaishnavas. Prabhuji, very practical examples of the mother running towards the child running towards the mother in fearful circumstances, despite other, he knows there are other powerful elements than the mother, but still he runs to the mother because of the only faith. The Draupadi example also is one of the classic where she surrendered with faith that Krishna is going to protect her in the assembly. So that also is the epitome of the faith, basically. Do we have that much of faith? That's where we need to go, basically. That's what our acharyas are telling, that surrender, then the there is a saying in English, faith creates power, Prabhuji. So this verse is basically the reflection of that this faith which is in the absolute, the faith is not relative here. The faith in the Supreme Personality of God is the absolute, and that is what and Krishna has given here the gradation of the faiths, gradation of the faith, that how do we invest faith in at various levels. That investment in faith is mainly because of the knowledge what we are acquiring through our senses. Like demons, they acquire through sense, they acquire more for sense gratification. The demigods, those who worship, they acquire also for sense gratification, but to a higher quality. Then, as you have mentioned, Shuddha Sattva, that is where the faith goes to the most highest level, where there is like the Vrajvasis, where there is no expectation but only love. So the faith only comes through love and surrender, Prabhuji. That's the main point which this verse is telling, that why do we try to tolerate all the nuisances of our kids? Is because we love them and we are trying to give them a better opportunity, right? Similarly, Krishna is giving us these various circumstances to start loving him, and Srila Prabhupada and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is giving the same. They are teaching us love. They are not teaching us the they are not teaching any dry philosophy. Um, the classic example is Bhaktivinoda Thakur there was one tantric, Prabhuji. Since this came with the demons, there was one tantric, and where he was challenging everyone, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur went. Everybody was so fearful of him because he had some mystic powers. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur took his scriptures along with him, scriptural books with him, and he went and challenged, and he won. He defeated the tantric. What that proves is that the Shastras are much more powerful than the mystic powers. So, so Krishna is trying to give the gradation of that faith. So we have to go to transcend these gradations, basically, Prabhuji, from demonic natures to the sense gratification to the Shuddha Sattva. That is what I'm adding to what you have already mentioned, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Yes, thank you so much, Prabhu. Yes, there is a lot of uh, tantra, black magic, and these are temporary. These are they try to hurt people by doing all this. Eventually, it may backfire. There are a lot of so anything which we are trying to enforce on others, not at the will of the Supreme, but at the will of ours, just because of our personal vendetta. Lord is not going to approve of this, and there are consequences. And during the 17th, 16th century, there were a lot of uh, so-called in the Vedic philosophy, it was all tarnished, and there were a lot of these misconceptions which were there, and eventually, if you go to various different parts of India, how they were being misused, and how Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, and our acharyas have written scriptures, and how they have challenged the so-called uh, people who are professing mantra tantra by giving the love, because by giving love there is no self-interest involved. The person who start loving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that trait of love is going to arouse in him, and he will start loving the family members, the other personalities, the relatives, the people in the workplace, and so on. So our process is universal, because that's the reason why anybody and everybody can take to it, because it's the process of love for Godhead, which is unlike other methods where you're basically loving the Godhead for personal gains. And Prabhu used the word the tantric in the example of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. But the process, what we have, is a process of loving. Once you start doing bhakti, you would start having love for Godhead, and that love is going to rub on other aspects of your lifestyle. If you will start offering fruits, flowers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when you do that, you realize that whatever I'm going to offer, my wife or husband is going to cook. So why don't I take something which is acceptable, which is likable by the Supreme? And by using that, gradually everybody will start culminating that love, which is going to help universally beyond not just your relationship with the Supreme and with everyone else. Thank you, Prabhu, for sharing. Any other comments about worship, about faith in worship? So let me add some practice, some practical way we start worshiping. You know, you might have seen, as the practice of worship has evolved in your childhood, you had whatever and you used to go to various different temples. Um, they will start putting a lot of sindoor or haldi or chandan on the forehead, and gradually they will keep applying it again and again and again. But once you start joining the Krishna conscious movement, you will realize that the Supreme Personality of God is a person, and he needs to change his attire every day. He needs to take bath every day, and he needs to be offered things on a regular basis. So you see that sometimes go to certain temples and they will put so much of sindoor on the top of the forehead that Lord is, it appears the Lord is having difficulty. S- So some of the practical implementation of worship in our houses and everywhere has to be, Lord is a person. He or she needs some ability of our service to be offered to him. And it doesn't have to be full. It has to be based on your capacity. But our treatment of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in our house, where actually it is his house and you are just a caretaker of his house by being there, if that mindset is evolving in your day-to-day life, where you have the deity form or the photo form, and that house is owned by them, and you are a caretaker of that house, and you offer them whatever fruits, rice, whatever you can, following the principles, that will arouse that element of love. Gradually, what will happen is whenever you go on your vacation, you will take the little principal deity of your house with you. So they become part of your family. Rather, you become part of their family. And that's how it starts. You know, you might have seen our sannyasis, whenever they go, they will take their saligram or they will take their deity form with them in their boxes, and they wherever. So that's the personalization, that's the personalism bhakti is all about. and and gradually it will. So as we're discussing worship, we thought I will just mention, and there's no limit, there, uh, but this is a start you all can think about in your ability to have that relationship with the Supreme in your house, and then temple, and so on and so forth. I thought I'll add that, but any other comments or reflections?
Yes, Prabhu, in line with what you have told, Krishna has told in, I think, second chapter, Prabhuji, or third, I don't remember the numbers and the chapters, but he has told that I have given, I have sent sacrifices, I have sent scriptures, how to live in this especially on this in the material nature. He has given, basically it is like the manual how to live, Prabhuji. But at the same time, our acharyas have time and again proved that it may not be difficult. It may be difficult in these time and circumstances to follow those practices, right, Prabhuji? The yagyas, because they are they were recommended as per the age. So in this age, the easiest way, that's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has advented and he gave us that easiest is to do the Sankirtan, not Kirtan. It is Sankirtan, that means congregational chanting basically. And that is the easiest, and that has no rules, and like the other um, at other times what we have those very strict rules and regulations. We don't need those all, which everybody can practice it, Prabhuji. That is the essence of what Srila Prabhupada has tried to give us, that wherever you are, chant Hare Krishna. The other things can be followed later as we are gradually progressing, as we are increasing our love, we can do all the things, but we can start with just chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. Very simple, no rules. Don't have to take shower also. You can get up, brush your teeth and start chanting. It seems in Vrindavana, Prabhu, they just rinse their mouth, and of course they are yogis, Prabhuji. They just rinse their mouths in the cold winter. They don't care about the shower. They just rinse their mouths and start chanting, Prabhuji. So that is what the ultimate aim is, Prabhuji. Yes, after that, do you want to graduate from chanting to other worship? Yes, definitely we should, to improve the personal relationship with Krishna, but we can start with chanting, Prabhuji. I wanted to add that.
Yeah.
Over, Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I have a
Krishna.
small question. So I don't have so much of knowledge, but I was watching through some of the series, especially in ISKCON Desire YouTube channels. So those people who worship those who are in the mode of ignorance and worship ghost and others, so like the tantrics kind of thing. So somewhere they were able to kind of temporarily, not permanently, but temporarily also hurt, Vaishnavas, very powerful Vaishnavas also. Not permanently. I will say that means the power of uh, bhakti is more but still, how they can do that when means the power of chanting is more as compared to means the uh, those guys who are doing it. So I know that means there may not be an answer, but I heard it, so that's what I
Ah,
said.
Yes. So,
આવવાનું છે હું આવું છું
what happens is
આવું છું નીકળો
the process
તમે નીકળો હું
is
આવું
a
છું
very powerful process, but the association is also important. You mentioned once upon a time these powerful devotees were Vaishnavas, and it is true actually. But what happens is when see, this is where one of our sannyasis, very powerful sannyasis, I just heard recently in YouTube, that the difference, there are many mutts in India, right? You might have heard.
Yes, Prabhu.
And there is ISKCON. So the question becomes, what is the difference between these mutts and ashrams and ISKCON? So in a typical mutt, what happens is they will get together, they will offer, someone will cook, someone will cut the vegetable, and eventually they will relish the sadhu sangha among themselves, and eventually try to be uh, happy, and they are called Gostanandis. That means they will try to enjoy, they will do some bhajan, but but ISKCON, on the contrary, We'll do that, but we go out, we preach, we speak about Bhagavad Gita, we hear about Bhagavad Gita, we put the theory within ourselves, because we realize if we are relishing the nectar of the Krishna consciousness, it has to be distributed. We are not selfish, because Krishna consciousness is a gift, but we should not be pushing for it. Okay, that has to be also mentioned, because sometimes some people may go overboard. So those devotees in your example, they were Vaishnavas, but eventually, as they are not gradually look, when you are basically hearing from YouTube, you have the desire to hear about the Vaishnava clips in YouTube. So you have the desire to enrich your knowledge, gain that. So unless we grow, that's why it is mentioned, if you have been following the Fortune 500, Fortune 200, it seems 70% of the Fortune 500 companies in 1970, they don't exist anymore, because if you don't grow, you die. What I mean by that is, if we constantly do not enhance our bhakti, it will be a challenge. And it's day-to-day life, because there will be challenges all around. But if you're not constantly connected, or reading, chanting, quality chanting, deity worship, uh, association, there is a possibility that there will be issues, there will be temporary fall downs. And that is exactly what has happened to those Vaishnavas. Even in our movement, there are personalities who have had uh, who have gone up, and in terms of the regulation, and have come down. So it's a personal gift. How we give that gift is important, Prabhu. And maybe they had those challenges in the past, and they have not taken enough time to
Yeah. Just to provide some little context to that, Prabhuji, I was watching that in Hare Krishna TV. The Prabhuji who was talking about, so he gave his own example. Actually, he was somewhere in one of the ISKCON temple. So there was a rivalry between some other temple, or other religious sect or something. So I mean, he tried to put, I mean, he was a tantric, the other guy who was opposing ISKCON. So they were building a new temple kind of thing. And he put black magic on that Prabhuji. But due to the power of bhakti and, chanting, he overcame that. So that's what he was explaining in there.
Right. And also, Bhakti Ratnak Prabhu talked about the tantric Vesication, who was challenging Bhakti Vinod Thakur, and eventually Bhakti Vinod Thakur arrested him in Jagannath Puri, and because there are rules and regulation around this personal misuse of scriptures. Even there are legal implications, and Bhakti Vinod Thakur was a very powerful Vaishnava, and also he was a
Deputy
from the
magistrate.
administration of the township of Puri, Jagannath Puri, in the 19th century. So he got Vesication arrested. So we have to see, and there are many, you might see over a period of 5 years, you'll see this individual has come up, and there is so much of flyers around, and after 5 years you see that this person is seen in a different city, and there are newspaper articles where he has just fallen from somewhere, and so those things happen, and that is exactly why more we stay pure, Prabhu, we can assure our love for bhakti, and our strong faith with bhakti will prevail. Okay, Prabhu?
Great, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu, for participating. Any other comments? If you have any comments, please share, because we have been discussing about this, and more we discuss, it's good for us. So if there is one more thing I wanted to say, is this Thursday we have Ram Navami. We have the appearance of Lord Sri Ram. As you know, Lord Ram had so many associates. Some of his deep devotees are Jatayu, Sampati. They're basically vultures, They are bears, Jambavan, monkeys, Sukriv and Hanumanji. There is Vibhishan, one of the great devotees of Ramji, who was a demon. So as you can see, Ramji is very dear to a lot of personalities, not just human beings, to vultures, to bears, to monkeys, demons. So Ramji holds a very special place in our spiritual reinforcement, in our ability to love the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he was just a hero, just to sort of find his love, find his dear wife. He just built a bridge on an ocean. The help of animals, he just went and just, that is how a hero has to be. A person who can go anywhere, anytime, and kill the enemy in his den. And this is, he's actually inspiration. And more we dwell on Ramji, it gives us power. It gives us that faith that if you're true to your deeds and you have determination, it doesn't matter. You can go anywhere, anytime, and if you're on the right side of the truth, you will prevail. And Ramji's appearance day is on Thursday, the 30th of March, Ram Navami. There'll be program in the evening in our temple in a big way. Ramji is a hero of many devotees, and when you hear Ram Katha, it purifies our heart. The Ramayana is full of sacrifice, intrigue, full of suspense, and full of inspiration. And what a sacrifice Ramji did at the request of Kaikeyi Maharani. I mean, this shows, this is the height of suspense. Kaikeyi Maharani used to love Ramji like anything. Sometimes she loves Ramji more than Kaushalya Mai. But the Kali in mantra, in the ability to put doubts in the minds was there at that time. And the best mom can eventually seek the best son to go away for 14 years. Very, very inspiring to hear Ram Katha from eloquent speakers from ISKCON. And there will be a lot going on now in the social networking. So take the benefit of reading about Ramayana, hearing about Ramayana, and reinforcing that ability to love the Supreme Personality of Godhead through his actions, through his forms, and through his deeds. 30th temple evening, Ram Navami, lot of celebrations. There will be wonderful prasadam as well. So please come, meet, and and if you want to offer something, there'll be a message which will go out in the groups. Bring something for the pleasure of Maryada Purushottam Ramji. Very powerful, inspiring personality for all of us to look up and tweak our lives so that we get the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if there is no other announcement, any other announcement, anybody wants to say anything or tell anything? So if there is none, so let's end here by offering obeisances at the lotus feet of Vaishnavas by saying Vancha kalpataruvyascha kripa sindhu vaevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo. Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.
Prabhuji, I'm for one link which Gauranga Prabhu has sent on Ramayana.
Mhm.
I posted in our group. That's a very good way. The 4 characteristics of the Ramayana, Ram, Shatrughna, Bharat and Lakshman have been described. What personalities are, why they are there. That is the actual meaning, actual message of Ramayana, which we should learn.
Definitely. Thank you, Prabhu, for sending. And if you have anything, share with us.
We can discuss that, Prabhuji. If somebody has want to discuss, even if they understood also, if they like to discuss in this setup of Bhakti Vriksha, we can explore that.
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, thank you, Prabhu, for sharing. And I just want to have another announcement. Next Saturday, there is a big event in the temple as well. All of you are invited there. So we will not have the Bhakti Vriksha. And I have posted the Saturday evening program in the group as well. So we will skip next week. So maybe we'll meet most of you on Thursdays. Saturday there is a Vyasa Puja celebration, and we'll meet next Saturday. I just wanted to mention that.
Sure, Prabhu. Thank you.
Okay, so see you all on Thursday evening and Saturday evening in the temple. Okay, thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Dandavat
Krishna.
Pranam.
Him